Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women for Forests and Future Generations Defending Communities from Pandemics and Climate Chaos webinar. We're really honored to have all of you with us today and all of our incredible presenters. My name is 𝗪𝗡𝗨𝗪, and I am the Executive Director and the founder of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, or WECAN. And I know some of you may be new to our organization, and I would just suggest that you go to our website to learn about a lot of our different programs that range from being in a coalition of women working for a feminist Green New Deal to working on fossil fuel divestment. We do a lot of work around changing the narrative to really confront and dismantle a lot of the dangerous oppressive systems that we're living in now, as well as presenting a powerful vision for the future. We work with forests, obviously, as you can see from our webinar today, and a variety of other work that we're really excited to share with you. So please be welcome to look at our website to learn more about us. And throughout this conversation today, Catherine Quaid, who's our wonderful communications coordinator, will be putting links into our chat so that you can follow along and get some of the links of the things that we're talking about. And at the end of the webinar, as we usually do, we'll be sending out a list of links and putting them also on our Facebook page so that people can really follow up and learn more. This webinar today is part of our ongoing WECAN Advocacy and Solutions series called A Just and Healthy World is Possible. And again, there's been other conversations, and Catherine will put a link to where you can see some of the other recordings of other sessions that we've had. And this has been part of our response to this moment, to the multiple interlocking crises of the COVID-19 pandemic, the accelerating climate crisis, ongoing racism, colonization, capitalism, and patriarchy, which are the primary root causes a lot of these interconnected issues that we see. And we really want to present a systemic analysis so that we can learn each time when we meet how all of these different crises are connected to one another and how we need to really approach them at a very deep level. There's sort of the short-term immediate emergency responses that we're dealing with every day, which we must do, but we also need a long-term view about what is happening historically and how we need to change these systems over the long run. And I think I also just want to start by saying, that we're at WECAN, we are really thinking about you, our community, and we are holding you close to our hearts as 2020 continues to turn our world upside down and inside out. There's been a great deal of losses, from jobs to homes to losing loved ones. The violence against our Black and Indigenous sisters and brothers continues to escalate. Every day there just seems to be, just so much more pain and grief and suffering that we are seeing. And we want you to know that you are not alone. We are maybe sheltering in different places, but we need to be here for each other and to connect in our communities, to connect in our networks, to reach out to each other and to say you're not alone and we're here for each other and supporting in every way that we can. And at this time of a lot of grief and sadness, it's also a time of a lot of learning happening for me, for everyone, for our organization, for many communities. There's a lot of awakening happening as well, internally, externally, as we collectively dismantle and transform at many levels. So, it's also important to recognize that work is also going on. There is so much we could talk about, but today we really wanted to focus on diving into the topic of forests, because global forests are on the brink of ecological collapse in many regions. And we really need to continue to take an unwavering stand to protect them and the Indigenous peoples who have long stewarded the world's forests. For me right now, I'm in California. You probably know we're having a very big fire here. Right now, we have had more acreage burning than we did all last year, which was a really heavy fire season. And we're not even in technical fire season right now. And yeah, it's been really intense between COVID and the fires here, and a lot of forests are burning. And it is due to the climate change, the droughts here, but also I want to acknowledge that lawmakers here and the dominant culture has not been listening to traditional ecological knowledge of Indigenous people of the lands where we now live. I'm on coastal Miwok territories, and I really want to acknowledge the Coast Miwok. But throughout California, there were traditional practices about how to have controlled burns that were for cultural purposes, but also tending to the land in a healthy way so we don't see these huge fires. So there's so much we can learn from Indigenous peoples about living in their territories, in their stolen lands. And I think these fires are also bringing that forward. And the dominant culture's ways of living and how we have our world views are also big drivers of deforestation, as we see with overconsumption. We know in Brazil, agricultural business and the drivers of capitalism, mining and extractive economies in many of the forest lands we're going to talk about are big drivers of this problem of deforestation. And today in the session, the women and femmes from different regions globally are really uniting to share stories with us, lessons from their communities, and also their calls to action so we can together protect and defend forests in the face of increasing violence against land defenders, the coronavirus, and forest destruction. So I want to introduce our amazing presenters in the order that they will be speaking. And then before I hand the floor to them, I want to just make some framing questions and discussions for them to use as a platform for their comments. They're all going to speak for about 7 minutes or so, and then there'll be time for a discussion period at the end and some more input from all of them. They're all really amazing, and I could spend the entire time, literally, that we are here together on this webinar just on their bios. So we have lengthy bios of each of them on our website, and I encourage you to learn more about them and to learn about their organizations and to support them and their communities. But for now, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to all of them, and I'm sure they will also introduce themselves when they speak. The first woman we're going to hear from is 𝗪𝗱𝗹𝗪. She's an Indigenous woman of Kichwa and Swedish descent. She is a youth, social, and climate activist from Sarayaku in the Ecuadorian Amazon, and a dear friend, and is doing amazing work. Then we'll be hearing from Dayara Tucano of the Tucano Indigenous peoples in the Brazilian Amazon. She is an independent communicator and a phenomenal artist. I've seen her art, and it's deeply, deeply moving. And she's also the coordinator of Radio Yande, and also a dear friend, and is doing amazing work, and was with us in Madrid last year during the COVID climate talk, in the climate talks, the COVID talks. That's, I think, a good slip up there because climate and COVID are so interrelated. Then we'll be hearing from Nima Namanmandu. She is the founder of Safeco, and she is the WECAN Democratic Republic of Congo coordinator in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a dear friend, a force of nature herself, and we'll be hearing about her work in the DRC. And then also a very dear loved one, 𝗪𝗪𝗹𝗪, is a Tlingit leader, an activist, also an amazing artist, and she is the WECAN Tongass coordinator in Alaska. And she's also being joined today by a group of our WECAN Indigenous Women Tongass representatives. So she's there with our whole hub, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. And then last but not least, we're going to be hearing from Dr. unwavering. She is the gender expert and Women 2030 program assistant in the organization Global Forest Coalition, which is a really amazing organization working on forests around the world. So again, I just want to make a few framing comments, and then I'm going to hand the floor to 𝗪𝗱𝗪. Thank you again for joining us for this really important discussion about forests and women's work in the world around forests. And I want to start by sharing two images. And Catherine, if you could bring up the first image on the screen, I'd appreciate that. this first image is really an iconic image of women surrounding trees in India. And women defending and protecting trees has a very long history. And one prominent example of that some of you may know of is the women of the 𝗪𝗂𝗹𝗶 movement in India. And this movement is based on a Gandhian movement that was founded on nonviolent principles of satyagraha. And 𝗪𝗂𝗹, as some of you might know, means to hug. And the successful 𝗪𝗂𝗹 movement was generated by rural women in the 1970s in the Himalayas, in which they surrounded and were hugging their trees in their community to stop escalation of deforestation due to industrial logging. And it's always been a great inspiration and learning for me, and I think for many of us, to learn of these women who put their bodies on the line, as many Indigenous women around the world are doing, to protect their forest homelands. And this is where the original tree hugger terminology came from. The second image I want to show you, Catherine, if you could bring that up, thank you. I want to bring our attention to what a lot of Indigenous knowledge keepers have known for millennium, and now modern scientists are calling mother trees. And trees in the forest are connected by an underground network that spans for miles with the oldest trees, the old growth trees, many of them being mother trees, acting as guardians to the younger trees. And scientists are beginning to understand how trees form families, share resources, and warn of attacks from insects through a complex underground network of fungus that runs for miles and miles under the forest floor. And these mother trees look out for their neighbors, and they show us that the oldest living systems, you know, because trees and forests are a lot older than the human family, they create a world that really relies on cooperation. And I think we as humans have a lot to learn from Mother Earth about how she survives and how she thrives. And this mother tree and her way of cooperating with all the other trees in her neighborhood is something I think we can learn from. And for years, it was assumed that planting new trees, which are second growth trees, it was sufficient to cover the damage that humans have done from cutting old growth. But in recent years, and of course, Indigenous peoples have been saying this for a much longer time, but in recent years, scientists like Suzanne Simard have shown that trees communicate through, as I was saying, this complex network just below the forest floor, and that these mother's trees, these massive old growth, are the hub for communication, carbon transfer, and warnings about threats to the trees. And Suzanne Simard says, when a forest is clear-cut and the big trees are taken out, it's like a central nervous system is cut, and that forest will never be the same again. So old growth forests are vital for this reason, and also because of massive carbon sequestration that the trees are holding in terms of keeping CO2 out of the atmosphere, which of course we know is vital to curbing the climate crisis. We need these old growth forests for carbon sequestration. They're absolutely essential, which is why this work that the women are doing that you're going to hear from today is so essential as they're protecting their homelands and old growth forests. And it's not to say that second growth is not important. In fact, WECAN is involved, as you will hear, in reforestation programs and regeneration of damaged lands. This is also vital. So reforestation and replanting trees, of course, is very, very important in terms of ecosystem restoration and caring for local communities. But I did want to just stress the difference between the old growth and the second growth. And forests are not only one of our best defenses against climate chaos, but they are also our first line of defense against zoonotic diseases like COVID-19. And there's been significant research that has found that pandemics, such as the current one, are the result of humanity's destruction of nature, of wild habitat. And as we take over more and more of biodiversity, more and more of the wild lands, this is where these crossovers, like with bats and other critters who are in nature or carrying these different viruses, that were never meant to be a crossover with humanity, are taking place because we are taking more and more habitat. We are crossing over with the wild where we should not be. So where are we at right now with forests? Most experts agree that we're losing upwards of 80,000 acres of tropical rainforest daily, and we degrade another 80,000 acres every day on top of that. So we've got a lot of work to do to protect our forests. And what I want to really highlight today is that women are a key solution to forest protection. From the tropical to the temperate rainforests, Indigenous women in particular are organizing to restore damaged forest ecosystems and protect these vital old-growth forests that I've been talking about. They're sharing traditional knowledge, their stories, fighting to uphold Indigenous rights while exposing the intertwined root causes of forest destruction that we talked about earlier. And in light of this, we really need to ensure and defend the rights and sovereignty of Indigenous land defenders. They are protecting and stewarding over 80% of the biodiversity left on the planet, and much of that exists in forests. And WECAN, because of this, has developed a Women for Forests program, and we are working in 3 different regions right now: the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador and Brazil, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Tongass rainforest in Alaska. There are many important forests, but these are the ones that we have identified that we think are really key that we need to protect. And I would add the Indonesian rainforest as well. We don't work there, but I just wanted to mention that's also a very important ecosystem to protect as well. And one of the most important factors in forest protection has to do with Indigenous people, specifically Indigenous women, who are often the backbone of movements to defend their ancestral forest homelands. Yet at the same time, Indigenous people have major struggles with mining, logging, agricultural business, and these companies and these industries that come into their communities, often hiring private security firms that are backed by governments, entering their territories violently and with no consent. And as we know from Global Witness and other organizations, that there's been a big increase in threats and murders of environmental defenders around the world. And some of our close partners, unfortunately, have been killed. Many others have received death threats or have had their homes attacked because of their work to protect their forests. And women are even more vulnerable as land defenders due to sexual threats and violations when they speak out. So we are very concerned about this. It's something very dear to our work. We're also extremely concerned about Indigenous women that we work with in forest communities now, also because of the additional threat of COVID-19 impacting Indigenous peoples very hard due to their vulnerabilities. And Catherine is going to add some links specifically about the Amazon in Brazil and Ecuador. Brazil now has the second highest death rate, other than the United States, of COVID-19 deaths. And as many people have said, you know, when we lose a lot of these Indigenous leaders, these elders, we are losing libraries of knowledge, and it's incredibly sad and tragic, and we have to support these communities and help protect the elders and protect all of these communities from COVID as well as forest destruction. There's also dangers from man camps associated with these extractive economies in forest lands, where Indigenous women go missing and murdered, with attacks from these outside workers coming into their communities. This also includes workers coming in for mining and logging now, which also brings COVID-19 contamination into their communities. And I know that this is really drastic, but you know, we wanted to have a real conversation about celebrating the work of these women, but also not shying away from a stark look at what these realities are. We are also now adding fire season upon us, especially in the Amazon. So I could not stress more today that we need to stand up and speak out to defend the defenders of the land who are putting their bodies on the line for all of us to protect forests that we all need. The forests are the lungs of the earth, and we're not going to survive climate chaos or COVID-19 or any other environmental stresses without forests, and that means these women are core at the front lines to doing this. My last point before I hand the floor to Helena is I want to call your attention to a report called Power and Potential, released by the Rights and Resource Initiative, which discusses women's ability to access forests and to take part in decision-making regarding forest use and how this is crucial to conservation and climate change mitigation and also stopping pandemics. The report highlights that land tenure is fully linked to environmental issues, as women are known to play a key role, as we're saying, in protecting water, forests, and their communities. Yet women in many regions are denied land rights due to patriarchal structures, colonizations, and other factors. So here again, we see these interlocking systems of oppression where the women, because of patriarchy, are not allowed access to their own force or decision making. So this is why we need to fight for women's rights and Indigenous rights while we also do all this other work and see these are intersectional fights. The report goes on to say that forest women are a climate solution, and they need these community-based tenure regimes to ensure that the solutions that they're carrying are not eroded by vested interests. So clearly we need a gender lens and a feminist approach to forest protection for a variety of absolutely vital reasons, including the spiritual knowledge that these women are carrying and the spirituality that they are carrying as knowledge keepers about the forest itself and the web of life. So with all of these points in mind, I'm very, very honored to invite us to learn from these dearly loved women and their work, and as we stand up to defend global forests for now and future generations to come. And with that, I welcome 𝗪𝗱𝗱𝗃 from Sarayaku to please share with us her work and her community, anything else you want to share. Each of them will have about 7 minutes to speak, and then again, we'll have time for open discussion. Thank you, 𝗪𝗱𝗱.
Thank you, Osprey, for the introduction and for having me here on this panel. And hi, everyone. My name is 𝗪𝗱𝗱𝗃. I'm 18 years old, and I come from a community called Sarayaku in the Ecuadorian Amazon. So Sarayaku has a very, very long history of fighting oil companies. And as Osprey mentioned, that is also, it can be a very dangerous thing in our countries. So for that, we've been through a lot of things happening to our people, and we have always had to stand up for our community and for our territories to keep the oil companies out. For now, we do not have any oil companies on our territories, thanks to the great leadership of the leaders and of the people of my community. But it is still a problem. It is a constant fight. It's not something that well, we won over this oil company, but you know, there could be a new oil company tomorrow. There could be a new concessioning of our territories tomorrow, and this happens to us all the time. Right now, my community does not have oil exploration on our territories, but other communities have, or other communities are threatened, and this is a reality for us. And this is something we have to grow up with. We need to be constantly afraid and on alert to protect our communities. I wanted to mention a little bit about the COVID situation as well. COVID reached the Amazon, and my community, I think almost the entire community was infected by COVID. And of course, we were extremely afraid of losing our elders and for this to devastate our communities. But I think my community organized in a very early stage, and we used our ancestral medicine to heal the people that had been sick and took care of the people that were sick. So the situation in my community, at least, was pretty stable, but there are communities that were exposed to this earlier and were not able to take control over the situation. And this was due to, you know, a lot of the communities that were exposed to it at first were communities that have mining on their communities, or oil companies working in their territories. And in this way, they were exposed to the virus a lot earlier, and also were less prepared to handle it. So right now in Ecuador, a lot of indigenous communities are concessioned to either oil companies or hydroelectric power stations or mining companies. And this happens without our consent. This is never ever consented by indigenous communities. And this keeps happening, even though we protest, we stand up for ourselves. They tell us, my community, they told us, this will never happen to you again. It keeps happening. This is something that goes on and on and on and on, and this never stops. And I heard that 𝗪𝗡 mentioned that we can help in the moment something happens, like a crisis, but the Amazon needs constant support. Sorry?
Keep going. Just go ahead. There's just a mistake with the muting. Go ahead, Helena.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is something that happens all the time. This is not something that, you know, happens once and then it's over. It is our everyday life, and we need to treat it like that. And the people that can help and do something about it, we need to keep that in our minds every day, even though if we live in the Amazon, or if we live outside the Amazon or outside South America, we need to keep that in mind, because the decisions that are taken outside our countries, outside our territories, are the ones that affect us, not the ones that we take. So I think it's all of our responsibilities to be aware of this, and this does not only affect my people or the people of the Amazon. You know, everything is connected. So in the end, everything that happens, everything that is destroyed will ultimately come back to all of us. And it's our responsibility, not only mine as someone from the Amazon, but also yours as someone who lives on this planet, to take care of it. I know that it's a very hard task, but I think we all can do a lot by informing ourselves, being aware of what is going on, not just in Ecuador, but in Peru, in Brazil, in Bolivia, in Colombia, in all of these countries, what is happening to indigenous people, because in the end, indigenous people are the ones that are protecting the forests. If my community wouldn't have been exactly where it is right now, if my people wouldn't have been there, there would be no forest. There would be an oil company digging up oil, and everything there would have been destroyed. But because indigenous people live there, it is not. So when we talk about how do we protect the Amazon, the answer is protect indigenous people, support indigenous people. We need to make sure that indigenous people's rights are respected, and that they can continue to live or that we can continue to live like we always have done. And also, 𝗪𝗡 mentioned this, but this is also, it's so important to know where we are putting our money, where we are investing, what banks are we using. Does your bank invest in the destruction of the Amazon? A lot of people do not know this, but a lot of banks, both in Europe and the US, invest in the destruction of the Amazon. And often we don't know this because it's not something that is publicly out there. But when you just do some research, you'll know what exactly is going on and what exactly you're putting your money into. Instead of doing that, you could start supporting the Amazon and the people there. I think this was all from me, and I'm very keen to hear from all the other panelists. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Helena. Before we move to the next panelist, I just wanted to ask you one question, because I know that your time is also tight. I don't know how long you can be on the call, but one, we're going to put in the chat something called the Amazon Emergency Fund. which is a collective fund WECAN is a part of, Amazon Watch, many other groups, that is now fundraising for Indigenous peoples in the Amazon due to the COVID pandemic. So that is an immediate way you can help. Also, we're going to put in the chat a direct link to Sarayaku, which is a community where Helena comes from, and also supporting something that I think is very important you share before we move to the next speaker about 𝗪𝗪𝗱𝗃. Because one of the things that was really amazing about Helena's community is their vision as Indigenous people to teach us about other ways to relate to the forest that is not part of this extractive economy and way of thinking. So maybe you could say a few words about the Living Forest Declaration, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. 𝗪𝗪𝗱𝗃 is, well, now it is a proposal to the leaders of the world, but before it was that, it was our cosmovision and our way of living. And so it is something that is written, it is a proposal, but this is actually something that always has been part of our culture. And 𝗪𝗪𝗱𝗃, translated to English, means the living forest. And why do we say that the forest is living? When we see the trees, when we see the water, the lagoons, the rivers, we believe that every being in the forest is living, and that the rivers and the waterfalls and the lagoons, they have beings in them. And there is a being for every river, and there is a being for every waterfall and for every tree. And in this way, we also see this as something that is, you know, is not less important than humans. It's something that is equal to us, and we respect it, and we respect them, and they respect us. And in that way, we can live in harmony with them and in balance. We do not take more than we need from them, and we do not absolutely not destroy it. And when it's needed, we need to protect it as well, because in the end, everything that we live from, we get from the forest. We get our water from the forest. We get our food from the forest. We get our entire life from the forest. So the only thing we can do is protect it. I know. I think I saw the link in the comments. It's a lot more than that, but that's very summarized. So I hope you can check that out. And this is actually something that I see as a solution, because if we start seeing this, if we actually start seeing the forest for what it is, we will understand why we actually need to keep doing this work, and why we need to keep protecting our lives and our forests, because our lives are the forests and the rivers and, you know, all of this. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Helena, for being with us and being for such a powerful voice from the youth. And one thing that I learned from Helena and other Sarayaku women is that one of the visions that is part of the living forest, or 𝗪𝗪𝗱𝗃, the entire cosmology of the system that they're working on, that I found very profound of many components, is that how they're demarcating their land is with flowers. And I just thought that was such a powerful contrast when we see so many of our countries demarcating with borders and police and militarization, that the way that they're demarcating their land is through growing these beautiful flowers from the Amazon. And I just find that to be a really important contrast and learning for all of us. So thank you for your time, Helena. And now we're going to be hearing from, oh, excuse me. Yeah, we're going to first see a short film. Catherine is helping me remember all the different components of today. Before we have 𝗪𝗪𝗱 to kind of speak, we wanted to show a film about Brazil and some work that's happening there, just to support her presentation. And thank you, 𝗪𝗪𝗱, so much for joining us. So we'll see the short video, and then we will go to 𝗪𝗪𝗱. Thank you. I think we need the sound. I think you'll need to go back to the beginning with the sound.
A conjuntura política brasileira é muito grave para toda a população, em especial para nós mulheres. E agora temos um presidente que acha que as mulheres têm que ter papel secundário, salários menores. Está aqui participando do Fórum Permanente da ONU, em frente à Embaixada do Brasil, para nós tem um significado muito forte. Porque é reafirmar a presença e a existência indígena em todos os espaços.
Brazil is the deadliest country in the world for environmental defenders. Since the election of Bolsonaro, there has been an increase in the killings of indigenous peoples in Brazil. These are their lands, their forests that they have maintained. So it is up to all of us to be protecting indigenous rights. It's the morally correct thing to do, to help our indigenous sisters and brothers when they're under attack. But also for all of us, because of the climate, we need to protect the Amazon rainforest.
Bolsonaro, ainda parlamentar, ele falou que a cavalaria do Brasil era incompetente. Competente é a cavalaria norte-americana que conseguiu exterminar todos os indígenas. É muito urgente que o mundo escute a voz dos povos indígenas do Brasil. Nesse momento, órgão institucional, políticas públicas, pouco importa. Porque o que está nesse momento em pauta é exatamente a destruição, o extermínio e, mais uma vez, o genocídio coletivo de nossos povos. Eu não sei o resultado da nossa mobilização. Pode ser que na próxima semana vocês tenham notícias de várias lideranças nossas presas, criminalizadas ou mortas. Porque esse é o momento que a gente está. Mas nós vamos seguir firmes, resistindo, pagando com a própria vida, porque para nós a luta pela Mãe Terra é a mãe de todas as lutas. É que são nossos territórios sagrados que garante o ar, a água, né, o clima e que garante a vida no planeta. Nós precisamos urgentemente romper com esse modelo de desenvolvimento que usa de forma predatória a Mãe Terra. Estamos aqui para reafirmar que a luta pela Mãe Terra é a mãe de todas as lutas. Nova York pode até ser o centro do mundo, mas o que garante a vida no planeta é a Amazônia. Amazon is not for sale. The Amazon is not for sale. The Amazon is not for sale. Indigenous blood. Not one more drop of indigenous blood. The Amazon is not for sale. The Amazon is not for sale. The Amazon is not for sale. The Amazon is not for sale.
Thank you so much. That was our dear sister, 𝗂𝗂𝗹𝗲 from Brazil, when we were all in New York, working to protect the rainforest. And now, my dear friend, 𝗪𝗪𝗱𝗃, thank you so much for joining us. We're really honored that you took a time with us today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And thank you for showing the video. That is the actual situation in Brazil, and Sônia is one of our most important indigenous representatives. The national articulation of Brazilian indigenous peoples is working hard to get every kind of support to face the crimes of the Brazilian state, and try to help the communities that are facing these pandemics in a really hard way. personally, I lost 7 uncles. They were all medicine men and really true living libraries, masters of knowledge. In the Amazonian region, in my region, that is the high Black River, 𝗪𝗂𝗪 Negro, in the border between Brazil, Colombia, and Venezuela, we were like the first most affected area, even before other places. And the pandemics is not stopping, you know. It's just the same. People keep dying, and it's the women that are organizing to try to do what the authorities or the state doesn't do, like the same as Helena was saying. We are talking about people that doesn't even have access to drinkable water. How could you imagine them to have access to hand sanitizer? And in the middle of all that is really severe growing of violence, the hate speech against indigenous peoples, and the omission of the state. We have lost many important historical indigenous leaders. We have lost really important people that were fundamental.
We lost your sound.
Guarantee our religious rights, and they passed away without having any access to public health or the access to their families. The grief of the mothers that and the families that are not authorized to do the burial ceremonies, the grief of this shock that is just you know, I am in mourning, and I am not in a good shape to speak now. But we are a culture of sharing things. We share everything. We share our dishes. We share the water we drink. We share the same spaces all the time, and now we are not allowed to share. We share the idea of belonging to nature more than nature belonging to us. The Amazon forest is human seeded. For centuries, we have built this beautiful forest. And we can say that because every time we were in some place, like we installed a big house, a maloca, and we occupied some place for some time until we get to the point that it was beginning like we managed to see that we were impacting the forest, you know, like when you set an indigenous village for too long in some place, at some time it could get a little bit dirty, and so we must take very much care of having a clean space. And that's why traditionally many of our civilizations were just moving all the time, and by moving the villages, we were also seeding the forest. We were spreading the seeds and spreading the trees, and occupying in without settling, but just like traveling in this beautiful place. The indigenous territory is an indigenous of relation to the land, and the relation to the land is based in our culture, in our understanding of the universe. We are in a very critical moment of genocide, of ethnocide. These are not just numbers or people dying, it is also cultures dying. It is also the memory of a universe dying, of many universes dying. We are already a generation that has very few elders that we could name as medicine men or shamans or masters of knowledge. There are already so few. They were the survivors of the dictatorship times or boarding schools. They were the survivors of the efforts of great-great-great-grandfathers trying to pass through the next generation a way of living and a knowledge about the universe, and that is ending. I don't know if we'll be able to understand what is the truth of our nations, like what is the spirituality for us. It's so different from religion, you know. Our spirituality, our understanding of the world is based on how we work, on working on the land, on how we eat well. For us, the earth is the great-grandmother of the universe. We call her 𝗂𝗂𝗹𝗶. 𝗂𝗂𝗹𝗶, the great-grandmother of the universe. And I believe everybody has a mother, and maybe I'd like to believe that everybody that has a mother once, at least once, has heard from her that we need to eat well, that we need to be good and respect other people and take care of our health. When are we going to listen to our mother? As Sonia was saying, the fight for the land is the mother of all fights. The land is not just a territory. The land is a possibility of creating the continuity of life in this little grain of sand lost in the universe. I'm so sorry. I am really I am not good to say more than that.
Dayara, thank you. There's no need to apologize, and I appreciate that you even took time today to be with us in your grieving. And as you can see from the comments, and certainly from my heart, we love you and we support you, and thank you for being willing to share with us today. And I think it's good that we're not alone in our grief. I learned from one elder that the grief is too big for us to carry on our own, that we have to carry it as a community. So I hope that you sharing today can help you in your grief, just to feel our support and love and to not be alone in it. And something also that Dayara shared with me, there was a a really powerful gathering of many, many women. Our bodies, our territories, our bodies, of a huge women's march that was held in Brazil with Indigenous women from all over the Amazon coming together. And I really want to thank you for sharing that with us when that happened last year. And, you know, just hearing all the women coming together was really important. And thank you for all your work in that and sharing all the different stories from all the different Indigenous women. And I hope you feel surrounded by our love today, and all your sisters there, as well as everyone on this call. And to know that we're here for you and that we will fight with you, that we are in solidarity. And we'll be sharing more links about how to support different groups in the Brazilian Amazon as well as the Ecuadorian Amazon. And I know that before I let you go here, that you wanted to mention something maybe about your own community and a link that you had shared, or wanted to say something about that, and then we can close.
Yeah, so thank you again. And I shared this link that is like from our region. We live 23 different Indigenous nations. This is an action women-led, Indigenous women-led, and the name is like High Black River. We take care. It's like the ones that take care are women, and they are working really hard to get some food and basic stuff to Indigenous communities to go through this moment of pandemics. And they are also really inspiring warriors that are bringing their strength together to fight against violence and misogyny. And it's really the women power we have in our region. So it's really important to support them. And hope that that support will give some hope and peace to those families up there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We've put that link in the chat, and we'll share it out later. Well, Dayara, I love you dearly, and you're welcome to stay on as long as you wish, or if you need to leave, we understand. And again, I'm surrounding you with virtual hugs and support, and know that we are always here for you. We're always here for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to be moving to another side of the Mother Earth to hear from 𝗪𝗓 Namadamu. Again, she is the founder of SAFECO, and she's also the WECAN Democratic Republic of Congo coordinator, and it's a dear, dear sister. We've done so many amazing things together. And 𝗪𝗓, I'm going to hand the floor to you to introduce yourself and to share the amazing work that's happening in the DRC. 𝗪𝗓, are you there? Catherine?
I think 𝗪𝗓, you just need to unmute. Oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry about that.
Hi, 𝗪𝗓.
Hi, you hear me now?
Yes, we do. We can see you and hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Really is so hard to talk after my dear sisters both, and I'm with them. I present my sensory condolences, and everything is going on. And like you say, she's not alone. We are all together in this pandemic, in this crisis, in this big world. A whole planet is moving same vitesse, same things, same challenges. I presented to my sisters from Itombwe forest to Amazon forest. I think it's why we are together. We share the same vision, and we are looking for the same future. That is the story. We are losing our knowledge, our elders, because is where we transform, is how we get knowledge through our elders. Same things in Africa, especially in Congo and indigenous people. Let me present myself. My name is 𝗪𝗱𝗱. I'm from DRC Congo, and I'm a representative to WECAN Congo. I think I've been doing this marriage between Congo and WECAN like a partner with my dear sister 𝗪𝗱𝗋 from I think it's 7 years.
Yeah, it's been 7 years.
It's been 7 years, and we are going to be forever.
Yes.
Our marriage is we share the same vision, same mind, and how to be human being. You know how this racism is hating. And now I'm Black woman, I'm African. But we are not slave about our history, but we are master for our history. We are master for our history. Kind of where people, the system built this racism, like genocide, is going on. But me in my country, particularity, coronavirus is not in our area. We live in really high altitude in mountains, and the people, we have a big space, but we have a big issues right now is going on my territories and my communities in South Kivu province. Insecurity crisis, because those kind of international rebels, militias, working with our government, looking how to move my community. They live there maybe 500 years. From long, before colonizing come to my areas. And now they are bringing those people, because you know, if I can tell you little stories, Congo is second rainforest after Amazon, and also is maybe number one about minerals, coltan. That is diamond, all minerals. In your knowledge now is really timing for this kind of computer, phone, the electronic stuff, airplanes, all those minerals, more like you have iPhone, everything, they are from Congo. And that is blood of Congolese people. From when time of colonizing was 10 million dying. And because it was looking for kind of type for cars, for everything, it was kind of revolutionary. And now we are another kind of big revolutionary where people using technology. And that's now in our area, we have gold, all those kind. Now we are fighting with those rebels from militias from neighbor countries. But in Africa, we don't make guns. And those guns that from those countries are developing, they're selling guns. Now they are wanting to move whole villages. They put fire on our housings, on and everything. But we still fighting, women fighting, with women planting trees. We already plant more 100,000 trees. Let me begin in our work maybe, but our problem is really big. Let's begin talking about our WECAN, our program, how I meet, how we begin working. My organization name is called SAFECO, means Synergy of Congolese Women Associations. And I speaking at WECAN caucus on 2013. That was really my first marriage we did with WECAN. And let's continue to work on this what I'm doing. Second year, I really begin introducing Congolese women to embracing by WECAN International. We did the first meeting with indigenous community around the forest, the 𝗪𝗪𝗹𝗪. We did that meeting, and after the meeting, we did on 2014 in July, from January, we did Sagnity. You see, some women really don't know how to do, to sign. They was doing, we did putting, like, they don't know how writing, but they have full knowledge. Those indigenous women, indigenous community, some don't know how to read or writing, but they have a big knowledge. When they went there to do workshop, they teach us. From long time, they didn't need medicine. For example, there was indigenous women and the women living around that forest create with that year now, after we did declaration with WECAN, and we did meeting about celebrating 1 billion rising with climate justice. That was the first we celebrate. You see the photos and how we did. Was really amazing to see now how we celebrate, how we talk, how we said about protecting our forest. That was a really kind of journey we begin with WECAN. And I was so happy, and I didn't know how I have that knowledge. And we didn't really stop there. We continue on June, WECAN staff completed the 4 weeks online training. We did the training, how we planting trees, how we begin moving trees around the wall, around the forest, with also indigenous trees was a cutting. And this was a training online we did June on 2014. That was the beginning our journey, and we working together. We did this kind of our training. Let's go to another one. After we did this, we look how really we can get the indigenous community. With that time, long time ago, we didn't need medicine. They didn't need medicine. We have those medicine from trees, and we have organic food. I think people, when they get sick, like she said, my dear sister, they have elders who have a knowledge, who know these trees, this medicine, you can do this. People broken down with bones, they put you medicine. It was no problem with really kind. But mining company were being ever concessional in Mwenga territory is where my forest, is where my community lives, in 𝗂𝗪𝗹𝗏 forest. We live around the forest, 𝗂𝗪𝗹𝗏 forest. Maybe you can check about diversity we have in that 𝗂𝗪𝗹𝗏 forest. Is why all my community from ancestors we live there. But this really we begin fighting with those mining companies. And we form a committee from 8 villages was living around the forest together in the community, representing and strengthening the region in the governor in South Kivu province town, our capital called Bukavu. Just recently, the mining is part of Mwenga has stopped. They really kind of, there was a stopped because we make much noise. Women, we go to meet the governor, we meet local government, and we try really so hard to work on that. And we see, you see, this was in the mission, we have a take mission in the forest, in the Mwenga territory, in our forest. That was cutting, but people say, don't cut these trees because those trees that we have fruit. When women are pregnant, you eat those fruit. You eat those kind of vegetables from forest, and you will be really in good health. That was the beginning, our lobbying now with government. That's the government endorsing us. You see, those they are authorities, that administrator of Mwenga territories. This is our committee. We did those meetings. That is our forest of 𝗂𝗪𝗹𝗏. That you see how it's beautiful and how it's big. It's like Amazon forest. And indigenous women was really sometimes shocked to say, let's protect this and everyone can have to breathe in a good way. They was shocked, they didn't know that this forest you can have living in America, living in Europe, living everywhere in the world to benefit from this forest. And that was the only knowledge we give. You see now here is deforestation high of 𝗪𝗂𝗹𝗪. This was the mountains. Long time when I was a baby is where I lived here. When I was a baby was a forest. That was my beginning with journey with WECAN. You see now how things is. Now we begin women now we work together, putting meeting together in 𝗪𝗂𝗹𝗪 where the forest is finished. We invite our administrator from Mwenga. He came and we begin planting trees. You see how we begin planting trees, and now we did nursing. This is 𝗪𝗂𝗪 forest. We begin planting. This first year we're planting 5,000 trees. You see, we begin doing we begin planting women's, and with supporting our marriage we did with WECAN here with Osprey. Really, Osprey, I think we recognize your effort. I think you give us like we are partner, and we together we did. First year we planted 5,000 trees, and we begin planting. A second year we did 40,000 trees we planting. And that was really beginning, and we always look now how we are. Women planting trees, going every corner, we are fighting. But right now, we have those insecurity, those militias from neighbor country, from Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, coming, making like pretending, say, oh, they are community fighting between the different tribe, Banyamulenge tribe, Babembe, Bafulero, and everything, but it's not that. We know is invisible hand is pushing those neighbor country, using them to come to move all this. And we already planting more, over $100,000, not $1,000 trees. And that is the problem we have now with really. You see how we begin now planting kind of how we can bring back our forest, how we can really helping world get something going on. Now you see Indigenous, we planting our own trees. That is when I was last year, I was on around our center where we build our center. That is in the trees we're planting. This is 𝗪𝗱𝗃, my colleague. We went there together, and she loves forest. She was enjoying those forests. And you see the women now. You see the forest. For her, she's a woman who plants more 2,000 trees alone. Because that with the planting with only hands. We don't have a car. We don't have gloves, but women continue to work. That is the power of women deforestation. And now we was celebrating our 1,100 trees we planting. It was dancing some women because we celebrate women all together. That was a little something I can tell you right now, but we continue. We continue to work on that kind of our planting trees and our how we can serve this planet. Is not only for our own, but for whole world. I think we need to put our energy together and to see how we can really fight. Thank you so much for giving me this time, Osprey. I really appreciate.
Thank you so much, Nima. Beautiful words, powerful words, and so beautiful to see the photos and all of the women and your hard work. And, you know, it just really moves me that in the middle of, you know, a lot of violence that's happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as you've said, and these militias coming in, that all of you women have stayed so strong. Nima was just telling me the other day that, you know, even though some of the homes had been burnt to the ground, which is devastating, the women came back to their community, but the trees were standing. Some of them over 20 feet tall, and how, you know, how important it is that the forest continues and that we're still, you know, doing everything we can to protect the women. and continue to reforest. And I just would add that, you know, when we planned the project, 30% of the trees that we're planting that are reforesting damaged land, you saw that before and after shot of just total clear cut. We're reforesting the damaged land. 30% goes back to human use so that 𝗪's community and all of the women there can get their food and medicines and take the things that they need for their life from the forest. But 70%, the primary amount, is going back to rewild the ancient forests for future generations.
Yes.
So this is like a really beautiful, multifaceted project to have economy for women, you know, strengthening women's leadership, reforesting damaged land, but also, you know, how to live in a managed way with the forest that's good for the people who live there and support traditional ecological knowledge and ways of life with the forest. So at the same time, the whole other part of the Tongass rainforest, the old growth forest, is now being protected for carbon sequestration, because as we grow this new growth, all the old growth is being protected. And 𝗪 has really impressed me because they've also organized all these teams who go around protecting the old growth forest that is now not being used because of the new growth. And they create these teams to protect from illegal forestry and illegal mining, and the incredible courage to stand up to these militias. So I just, you know, deeply honor everything you're doing, and thank you so much, my sister. Amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll open the floor again for more for conversation with 𝗪 in a little bit. I'd like to now introduce 𝗪𝗲𝗹𝗲 again. She is Tlingit and a beautiful artist and activist, and we're very honored to have her be our WECAN Tongass coordinator in Alaska. And I know she's there also with some of our other wonderful WECAN Tongass representatives. So we hand the floor to you, Wanda, and all of you up in Puna.
I'd like to say today that the Tlingit have learned that the trees communicate with each other, even through their roots.
Can we, there we go. Now we see you. We didn't see you. Okay, go ahead. You're good.
The trees
Oops.
And also we have found that every forest within our region and in our state of Alaska communicates with each other. I have learned also that our trees communicate along all the coasts that we have, including California, where 𝗪𝗡 lives, and throughout the whole entire world. And that's what we're doing right now. We're healing ourselves, we're hurting, and we're communicating. So we're all part of this. It's good to see everybody. I would like to say that react to the efforts, the huge efforts of the regaining ecology by replanting your forest in the way you're doing. It's really amazing to me because the Tongass forest is so rich throughout time. We haven't been contaminated and burned out, that we have to thin out our new growth rather than replant. And that's the difference in the worlds we live in. Although they're similar in every other way, as far as our cultural existence goes, our indigenous nations we're all in tandem here. I also belong to, both of us, Rebecca and I, to Stand Earth movement, which is committed to clean water and clean cruise line activity. In 2019, early in 2019, 4 of us from 𝗓𝗏 made it to Washington, D.C. to meet with, in the Republican and Democrat realm. We also met with the Department of Agriculture's office to advocate for the strengthening of the roadless rule, of which the logging industry from Washington, D.C., through our state, through our own native corporations, have been advocating to weaken the roadless rule and reopen it up, clear-cut logging, of which we have suffered through since the 1970s to the late 90s. That 2001 roadless rule is designed to protect from any further industrial exploitation such as that. And we know we're in climate crisis, all of us around the world globally. Through environmental destruction has been dominating our worlds and our lives for too long. And in Alaska, Alaska Natives, we fought hard to have a just land settlement to identify what lands we own. Well, Congress in their wisdom came up with 2 laws as a result of our hard, decades-old battle for just land settlement for Alaska Natives. Well, Congress gave our land settlement to the state of Alaska to be administered under corporate laws. And 40% of the land mass for state of Alaska is state of Alaska. And the state has 100% control of our navigable waters, of which we have depended upon since, there's been life. Also, the other law that came forward, Alaska Native Claims is the one I'm referring to, ANSCA, then to balance out Congress and their wisdom for making Alaska Native lands basically corporate lands, they spawned the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act. So this is a lands conservation authority, which is federal law. 60% of Alaska is under federal law. 14 federal agencies administer the federal lands. 5 of these agencies are there to protect the land conservation law and also our customary and traditional use as Alaska Natives, prioritizing the fish and game resources should there be a shortage. This is federal law. Now, the ANSCA law, land settlement, and ANILCA laws oppose each other. ANSCA law does not protect our cultural existence. As a matter of fact, it ignores it. So our lands we're actually illegal to do a cultural existence on our own lands that surround our villages, under which is state jurisdiction. Federal lands, of which federal law is there to protect, has been real confusing throughout this time since Alaska became a state in 1959, and then our land claims popped up in 1971. So there's been a lot of confusion on whose authority is whose as Indigenous women, and our knowledge of who we are and where we come from. We know the differences between Indigenous laws, federal laws, and state laws, and we have made it our commitment to make these distinctions. And then the roadless rule comes up against attack in the last couple of years, and with the help of WECAN, here we are in the Tongass. I'm the coordinator, and we've got other Indigenous women that are speaking out and joining us as well. Because okay, talk louder. So Rebecca, sitting next to me, and I have become familiar with the Federal Subsistence Board's rules and regulations and how they're committed to protecting land conservation and our Alaska Native usage and existence. So we have, in addition to going to DC, we had a virtual, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. We met with the Federal Subsistence Board, 5 federal agencies committed to protecting our cultural existence, which is not happening. The laws being so confusing, Rebecca and I developed a proposal to the Federal Subsistence Board fixing all of the errors that are simply administrative fiats. And as a result of that, the Federal Subsistence Board, and also partnering with WECAN, with Southeast Alaska Conservation Council, SEAC, we were able to have a virtual meeting with the White House, actually, the President's Office of it's called the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, defending our proposal to those 5 federal agencies. So this kind of made a full circle for us. We started off with the House of Congress, and then we made our proposal through the Southeast Alaska region to these 5 federal agencies that made it to the White House, defending the confusion with these 2 laws and how they can work together instead of against us. So we've made progress that way. So we've made our own political voice through these virtual meetings. August 10th, we had another virtual meeting defending the roadless rule as it's coming up for final decision making. With it's going to be, stepped on by the industry, or is it going into federal protection code of federal regulations? We were able to have a virtual meeting with 6 congressional offices from this very house, and Osprey, Carrie, Mamie, Rebecca, and myself, Catherine Quaid. It was good. I believe we were able to influence 5 out of the 6 that we met to support the roadless rule being saved, and also some of them didn't even hear of the law before, so we were able to present ourselves in our formal regalia when we met with them, the same way we did when we were in Washington, D.C. So let's see, I hope I'm covering all of this. I'd like Rebecca to have a few words. I know she covers better than I do on many things. Good to see your faces. Cheesh.
Thank you so much, Wanda. We really appreciate that. And Rebecca, we want to hear from you, but we also
would like to have a few minutes right now, Osprey.
Yeah, no, we will. We want to let you know we have the breathe video as well. So as soon as you're done, Rebecca, we're going to also show the breathe video.
Great. Thank you, Osprey.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Sars, and I live here in Hoonah with 𝗪𝗱𝗋. My family is from Hooper Bay, Alaska, and the trees that come from the Tongass that go into the bay where we live, there's no trees, and we used to make full kayaks out of them, and that's a fun thing that I like to share. And our people would not have been able to fish, traditionally hunt and gather without the use of the trees from the Tongass. So these trees in the Tongass are very important to my people traditionally, and I want to help fight for keeping the roadless rule in Alaska. The roadless rule helps keep small mom and pop shops in control of the Tongass National Forest instead of giant corporations overtaking the land like they did, as mentioned from the 70s to the 90s. We've been doing a lot of grassroots work and a lot of global work all at the same time, and through this global work and hearing what all these other women have to say, it's the same thing over and over again that I'm hearing about what the action we need to take and who we need to listen to. It is really, really, it's really awesome to hear what the elders say here. An 18-year-old girl is saying that from the Amazon, the same words. It's so moving, it's so amazing, and I hope that we all can come together and make this what we want it. And you know what we can. So I'm so happy that we're all here together, and I hope that we can bring, you know, this feeling that we have and move it together. So we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wanda. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And they're calling in from Hoonah, Alaska, which is a beautiful island in the southeast Alaska. And also, what I wanted to say, and they were both talking about this, is that we've been able to have really a hub there. There's Wanda, who is a coordinator, and then there are 3 other Indigenous women, including Rebecca, who are part of the WECAN team there. We've taken them on delegations to Washington, D.C. to meet with lawmakers. We've been doing things virtually this year because of COVID-19. And it's been really powerful to have them speak to themselves, speak truth to power, have them speak directly to lawmakers about how important this forest is. And also, just so people know, the Tongass rainforest is called America's climate forest because in the United States, 8 to 10% of all of our carbon sequestration from forests comes from the Tongass. So this is an important issue first and foremost to Indigenous people because their way of life and their entire cultural survival depends on the Tongass rainforest, and the whole economy of Alaska depends on the Tongass remaining intact. But it's a national and international issue due to climate change and the need to protect this forest for all of us and the lungs of the planet. And with that, we're going to show you a really short 2-minute video before we bring on Dr. 𝗪𝗱𝗹𝗪. So if we could just show this film, it features our 2 beautiful WECAN Tongass representatives, Wanda and Rebecca. So if you could head.
Breathe. Our elders always told us, 𝗂𝗂𝗪𝗱𝗃. This is your land. We live in the largest remaining intact temperate forest on Earth.
Breathe. We have a strong connection with the land and the animals that live on this land.
Breathe.
Eagles.
The sound. The bear. Breathe.
Tongass National Forest has always been critical for our survival, but now we know its value to the planet.
We were fighting to keep our forests intact because it's such a huge part of our way of life. But now we understand that our trees, our forest is worth more standing than on the ground. Breathe. Belongs to every one of us, and every one of us has a responsibility of protection.
Great, thank you. So we're going to be sharing the links to these videos afterwards. It's always a little bit hard to share them online this way, but we'll share the direct links so you can see all the videos we've been sharing and more in our follow-up to this webinar. And I just want to say that we are fighting the Trump administration's attack on the 2001 roadless rule, which would open up the Tongass to massive deforestation and mining. And so to be sure, you'll be hearing from us if you're on our newsletter, because we will be letting you know when the final environmental impact statement comes out. and how we have already been organizing to get public comments, but there'll be a whole other round of pushing back against this terrible legislation that the Trump administration is trying to push forward now, which will open up the region. And we will not let that happen, including putting our bodies on the line. This will not happen. We must protect this forest, as all the forests are hearing about today. So thank you so much from our wonderful women up in Hoona. And now our final speaker, we will be hearing from Dr. 𝗪𝗱𝗹𝗪. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this presentation. And while you are preparing my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. I come from Peru, from the Andes of Peru. And I am fighting, I would say, and I'm an activist almost 25 years of my life, fighting for the rights of indigenous peoples, rights to forest, to water, to land, and to a good living. And presently, I'm working for a global forest coalition that is an international global organization that work the indigenous people's rights. Here, I name my presentation toward Buen Vivir, that is in Spanish, that good living with gender equity and forest justice. This group is a group of indigenous community in Kiminet, Transmara in Kenya. So where we did a community-based forest management. So we learned a lot from these women, how they work in the community to protect their forest. Next, please, next slide. Please, next slide. So before, I would like to introduce, as I told you, Gender and Forest Global Forest Coalition. It's an international coalition of NGOs and indigenous peoples organizations defending gender, social, and environmental justice. Our strategy is basically doing assessment, policy consultation, and advocacy, basically to stop drivers of deforestation and biodiversity loss, and also to contribute to social and gender justices. So I will present now, I will focus my presentation in main findings of a regional gender assessment we did in Latin America the last 2 years. Here you can see in the picture, you see that we were meeting in the Marcha de las Mujeres, called it Carpa de las Mujeres in Chile, where different women from Latin America, from Bolivia, from Chile, from Brazil, and from Paraguay, they meet there, and they were bringing in this discussion what are the common problems of women, indigenous women, related to forest. So next slide, please. Please, the next slide.
Sorry, there might be a little bit of a delay, but when you say it, it's coming.
Okay. So what are our main findings from this gender assessment? You can also see that results in that links. So our main finding is that in forest communities, growing violations of human and environmental rights go hand in hand with extractive industries and other drivers of deforestation. So which extractive industries are we talking about? It's basically about commercial tree plantations, like palm oil plantations, biofuel plantations, eucalyptus plantations, pine plantations, etc. So also the unsustainable livestock production and the feedstock farming, mining, all those are extractive industries that brings the cows that cause deforestation and and injustices. So what is the particularity of these extractive industries is that unlike the domestic violence, these right violations are promoted and protected by international trade agreements and national laws designed to boost economic growth. Yeah, and unlike to domestic violence, where we can still find national laws and regional agreements to protect, to stop violence against women, the violence that commit this, the violence that is exerted by these extractive industries is protected by government law and international laws. So what is our next finding is that gender injustices are based on persistent patriarchal practices. And those practices are deeply rooted in colonial, extractivist, and capitalist model of production. So different forms of political, structural, cultural, or domestic gender violence are directly, specifically towards indigenous and Afro-descendant women. That's extremely, extremely violent to this group of women. And also we found that women's organizations are not just, I could say, are not passive people that they see all these kind of violations, but also they are active people developing different alternatives to pursue the good living. This buen vivir, what we say in Spanish. What is good living? Good living basically is a sort cosmovision of an harmonious and balanced relationship with nature and also with people based on the solidarity among women and community, based on complementarity and reciprocity among not only women, but also among women and men and different groups of the community. That is behind this concept of good living. So the next slide, please. So what are these alternatives? I will show you some of these alternatives of good livings that women from different organizations of Latin America are developing. In this case, this is an Mapuche women that they promote what they call it kumemonging. Kumemonging means this good living, this buen vivir among the Mapuche communities to confront these tree plantations. As you know, the Mapuche territories are completely invaded by eucalyptus and pinus plantation, and lastly also by nuts plantations for export to Europe. And so what they are doing is basically they try to try to develop and also to keep the traditional culture of Mapuche related to medicine. So they take care of those trees that has high medicinal value. And so these people are engaged, or these women are engaged in recovering the Mapuche health and the production of sale of agroecological products. And also presently these Mapuche women are fighting alongside their husband to assert territorial rights, because Mapuche people actually are not recognized in Chilean laws as a Mapuche culture. So they are fighting to get this recognition as a Mapuche people. Next slide, please. So the next experience is of these indigenous people of Bolivia. These indigenous people of Bolivia, those are very empowered women and leaders who try also to learn their to teach and learn their leadership based on their own culture. So they transmit via the radio, local radio or television, the message in their own language. So in such a way, they try to transmit their ancestral knowledge, their ancestral values, how to resist this capitalist models of production. And what is nice, next slide, please. What is nice from this indigenous people from Bolivia, I think is that happens in all these indigenous organizations and peoples in Ecuador, in Peru, in Paraguay, in Brazil, is that this sense of spirituality, this sense of belonging to the Pachamama, that is the Mother Earth, to belonging to the Mother Forest, to the Mother Water. So this sense of belonging, of being part of this Mother Nature, is the something that connects the spirituality of all these indigenous people and women, in, I think, around the world. So here we can see how they practice their tradition, this respect, thanksgiving to Mother Earth. So the next experience is this experience of Paraguay women's organizations who are cultivating biodiversity to resist soya plantations for meat production. As you know, not only Paraguay, Brazil also, and part of Bolivia are invaded by soya plantations, monoculture plantations, genetically modified soyas, to feed the pork and cow in Europe, and to produce not only meat but also milk. But these people still, these women still find a space how to cultivate their local biodiversity to confront these soya plantations. Next slide, please. So this is the history. The next slide is the history of women, of peasant women and community reserves of Santander in Colombia to combat lodging. As you know, this Colombia has confronted and still is confronting this large political war, political war, guerrillas war, and they suffered a lot, especially women, indigenous women, as a result of this war. So, and even within this kind of conflict, these women are developing alternatives to the burning and irrational cut down of native forests, the advance of monoculture with indiscriminate use of agrochemicals, industrial livestock farming, and the loss of ancestral knowledge and practices. It also seeks to halt the alarming displacement of rural people caused by clashes with the armed groups. So these reserve areas are basically peasant communities, areas with strong cultural bonds and traditional knowledge that coexists with Andean forest and in these Colombian places. So this is the experience of Colombia. The next experience that I would like to tell you is the experience in Brazil. In Brazil, how these organizations, basically this is the experience of MUPAN, that means Mujeres of the Pantanal. And they, for instance, they try to develop gender and environmental education for youth in Pantanal. As you know, Pantanal is the biggest wetlands with a rich biodiversity and forests managed by indigenous communities. So a way how to protect these Pantanal areas, biodiversity and the forest in Pantanal, is transmit also to this young generation this traditional knowledge and offer them this environmental education and also what means gender equity. Next slide, please. So the next experience that I would like to show you is that not only of our work in Latin America, but also in some Asian countries like in Kyrgyzstan. In Kyrgyzstan, for them, the women's rights and traditional knowledge are crucial for conserving biodiversity and also forests. And in Kyrgyzstan, women are engaged in planting medicinal plants, and also through this planting, they try to transmit this traditional knowledge to young generation. And this is planting new trees is also a nice experience that already talked my colleague Nima from Togo, Congo,
Congo, DRC.
Congo, DRC. So we also see this nice experience in Benin, how women, they really engage and in a passionate way to cultivating trees or recovering all this land that was eroded by for livestock production, industrial livestock production. And so this experience, as I said, is tree plantation. This is the one of the nice noble work that is developing women around the world, in Asia, Africa, Latin America, to recover destroyed forest. So these are some of the findings that I want to share with you from our experience from Global Forest Coalition, that we developed these different activities. I can tell you, and I maybe need some hours to talk you all those nice experiences, how women are fighting to resist the deforestation and the extractive activities. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Juana. We really appreciate so much your beautiful presentation and to show us, the scope of the work that different women are doing around forest protection, and also the incredible resistance that women are showing to colonization and to companies coming into their territories, and just the wide scope of work that women are doing to protect their forests. We are, we've got about 10-15 minutes left in the presentation time, and I wanted to one more time thank our amazing speakers from Alaska, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from the Amazon rainforest, from the different regions that Juana has presented, and just to feel our solidarity in caring for each other, for the forests, for biodiversity, for our health during this pandemic, and to really keep seeing that the future is in Indigenous women and women coming together to care for the land. And I'm looking in the chat section for any questions that people might have, that you want to ask the presenters. But while we're doing that, I'm seeing of the presenters who's left, I see Wanda is here, Nima's here. Maybe while we're looking for any questions, if Wanda or Nima, you wanted just to make some closing comment that you might have wanted to bring up when you're talking, why don't we go ahead and go to you, Nima, and then you, to Wanda, if you wanted to make some comments. People are sending a lot of love through the chat section, and I'll hand the floor to you, Nima, and then to you, Wanda.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us again this opportunity. Thank you for all your love and the inspiration to me, to the message. Let me tell you why women. Because women, you can't separating women with community. We are on the ground. Women, we are trees. Women, we are all we can do. We are on the ground. But men, they are in the system. The system try to use men. Is why you see the militias coming around the world, coming with those kind of mining, doing business. Men doing business for, like my dear sister, Dr. she say about women, empowering women and the community or gender. Women become business for the system. That we don't fight with men, but we fight with that system. Is why we resist. We don't have another alternative. They is our life. They are violating us, our land, our body, our human being to be women like where we are. That is where the closing comment I can say right now. Thank you so much for giving me this really time to be with you all. And thank you for all messages you are sending to me. I receive it.
Thank you so much, Nima. And people are asking about how to get involved, and Catherine is going to be putting into the chat section our link to our Women for Forest page for WECAN, and there you can learn more about what's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo and stay up in our blogs and in our newsletters, where we're going to be continuing to show how to support this project and the development of it, as well as what is happening with the Tongass. I'm going to hand the floor to Wanda, but you know, we did a big public comment period to protect the roadless rule. Like I said, we're about to head into another big fight on the roadless rule. Please stay in touch with us through our Facebook page, through our Twitter, through our newsletter, so that you can support these women who are working with very closely. Wanda, hand the floor to you. I think you're on mute though.
I would like to just to answer one of these questions, that is, what was the most difficult part and what is the easiest part? That I think it's nice to answer this question, because the most difficult part from this struggle of indigenous people is that the indigenous people confront discriminations from different fronts. That because they are indigenous, because of their color, because of the gender, because of the knowledge, they think that they are ignorant of their traditional knowledge is something that pertains to the past, and their religions are considered as superstitions, not really a real fact of the way of living. And so this kind of sentiment against indigenous people is very difficult, very racist and colonial, very colonial and patriarchal way of how they confront all these ways of angles, of discrimination. That is the most difficult, and how still they can be seen as equals to everybody, as equals in all the rights. So that is the most difficult part, and still is not from today and from yesterday. Those are from thousands of years.
Yes,
and colonization still didn't disappear in our countries, like Peru, of in any Africa country, of any Latin America country. And that is the most difficult part. And the easiest part, you already saw today. The easiest part is that women immediately women still, even in those difficult situations, in difficult political, cultural, economical, and pandemic situation, we still have such power and hope to develop alternatives, still to see life, to see a different world, to see this bending connection among us and among mothers, defending our Mother Earth. And that is not difficult. That is the most easiest way that how we are connected and bonded.
Thank you so much, Wanda. Beautiful words. Thank you, Wanda. Wanda, do you want to say anything? 𝗪𝗱𝗹𝗶 up there in Alaska. I think you're on mute. Catherine, can you help her with her mute?
Hey Wanda, I am asking you to unmute. I think something should pop up and then you can click it. There you go.
Okay.
I just wanted to say
It's so good to listen.
final words.
I wanted to thank everybody's voices today and everyone's ears, all your comments and energy coming forward throughout this whole world. It's very invigorating and uplifting. We're going through funeral here too right now, so we're in mourning, but all of us together are hurting. We know it. All of our voices are like salve to us. So, Chish, it's good seeing all of you.
Thank you so much, Wanda. And thank you, Nima. And thank you, Juana. All of you gave such beautiful presentations. And I know Helena and Diara had to leave from the Amazon, but they have been texting me and saying thank you and sending their love to everyone. And so I just wanted to close by saying, you know, we need to look at this entire paradigm that we're in a very holistic way, and forests and biodiversity and women loving Mother Earth and loving the land and supporting each other is one component of it. But it's really important, and there's so many levels. And this is a time, as when we started this conversation, where we know deep in our hearts that, you know, the situation we're in now with the pandemic, with racism, with ongoing colonization, with the climate crisis unfolding more and more, with misogynistic governments and moves towards authoritarian governments. This is all connected. It's not mysterious. We have been living in patriarchy for thousands of years, and this is a result of that. And these different systems of oppression are connected together. And I hope that one of the things that people will take away from today's webinar is, one, the amazing role of Indigenous women to lead us through this incredible time of crises with traditional ecological knowledge, with knowledge from all of our ancestors, with knowledge from the land herself, from the knowledge of the forests, for our love for future generations, and that we can really be guided through this time by listening deeply to Mother Earth, by listening deeply to people who are connected with the land. And also that means all of us learning that. We need to learn all of our ancestries, and when our ancestors have had deep connections with the land, wherever we are from. And we can all go out to our local trees and our local forests and do all we can to communicate with the natural world. This is also part of the transition we're in, is that we've been living out of harmony, out of respect for the wild lands. And this is a time to really recognize Mother Earth and uplift nature and uplift our relationship with Mother Earth and renew that relationship, and sit very humbly with Indigenous people in the regions where we live and learn from them and support their efforts as we go through this huge worldview paradigm change during this time all over the planet. And Mother Earth is calling out to us as women to stand up and use our voices, to stand up and defend the defenders of the land, to stand up and defend those who are putting the bodies on the line, protect water, to protect forests, to protect mountains, to protect all of our ecosystems. So I just want to leave us on the note that, you know, this is a long-term venture of a change for the human effort on planet Earth if we're all going to survive together. And we need to respect Indigenous rights. We need to respect our Indigenous sisters. We need to respect all women and lift up the feminine principle, lift up Mother Earth at this really, really key time. So with that, just thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we are in this together, and I know that by uniting collectively, we have the power to make the changes that we need. And we are thankful for all of you who listened. We know there's many leaders on the call who could be sharing so much knowledge. We hope you all continue to stay in touch. And we'll be having our next webinar on September 23rd, where we're going to be discussing the Escazú Agreement, which is very important in Latin America as a way to defend defenders of the land. And we'll be talking about that further in our newsletters and upcoming social media. Thank you to Catherine Quaid, our amazing communication coordinator behind the scenes, and to all of you. Everyone take care, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.